Thanks for tuning in. I'm Chris, and that's Murph, and we're going head-to-head, making picks so you can cash in slips. So grab a drink, enjoy the show, because this is the smartest idiot you know. Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome. Nice for you to join us again, Murph. How you doing today?
Doing good, Chris. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's great to hear your voice. I think after this last week, I finally got you off of the pedestal for going 13-3 for 2 weeks in a row, and I finally had a good showing. I went 10-4, and I really wish it was 11-3. But there were some games out there that, I just didn't fall my way. But I think we kind of shared some of those losses, and they weren't very expected, unfortunately. But we're going to dive into some of those games. But before we get in, I want to talk about your record too. You went 9-5. I went 10-4. That's not a bad clip. I think that's 5 units for me, 3 units for you. And that's what we call a good week. It's not 13-3 like you started, but I mean, I'm happy with it. I was disappointed with some of the games, as we'll get into. But what were your thoughts? What did you think?
Yeah, congratulations. It was a nail biter right down to the last game there for the pick'em. I think you won the tiebreaker there, but 10-4, man, hell of a week. Yeah, I went 9-5. A couple games I wish I could have back for sure, but I'll take 9-5 every week. I'll take that every week. I'll never complain about going 9-5 on the NFL.
Yeah, plus units. That's all that matters is if you're able to strike in some plus units there. There were some frustrating games in this week, and I know Thursday was frustrating for us with the Rams. That shouldn't have happened, and I feel like we're gonna say that for a few games with this slate that just shouldn't have happened. But before we get into those, we both had one-offs for games that should have been kind of a 50-50. Like maybe we shouldn't have been, handicapping them, but we handicapped the whole slate. So the first one is one that I lost, which was the Giants against the New Orleans Saints. And that one to me was just, you flip a coin. You had New Orleans, and then I had the Giants. Giants had injury problems, but for whatever reason, the Saints won this time. They're not winless anymore, and Spencer Rattler had it done. And I had no faith in Spencer Rattler. I thought Dart was going to be able to get him over there. Scatterbo was going to be able to get him over there. The offense was going to be able to get him to the win. But it didn't happen that way. And so you had New Orleans. What'd you see with New Orleans? Was there any reason why you picked them?
No, just pure gut instinct there. Like, if we go back and listen to the other podcast there, I think I said, New Orleans is favored by 2.5, which I thought was kind of surprising. But I thought Vegas, very rarely is Vegas wrong. So I just went with my gut on that one and said, Vegas might know a little something that we don't. But New York got off to a hot start and they were up 14-0. What killed New York is they had 4 straight possessions where they turned the ball over. You're not going to win. You're not going to win like that. When you're turning the ball over late, and they had one, Scatterbo fumbled there and it was returned for a touchdown. So that's a killer there. So, I mean, I'm with you. That game was a coin flip, but, I just happened to be on the right side of that flip this weekend.
There was another coin flip in the Miami-Carolina game. I had Carolina, you had Miami. It was a 1-point game, and Carolina ended up coming out on top. Now, Miami had this game all the way until the end, and I'll tell you why I picked Carolina on this is because Carolina seems in the second half to be coming alive. If you're a second half better, Carolina seems to be cashing in those second halves, at least for the games that I was paying attention to. It may not have been every single game, but I thought that they would keep it close. And if it was going to be close, Carolina may have came back in the second half. And that's really the reason why I picked them. And it kind of panned out that way. But I do like your point in the previous game of saying these 50-50 games, you kind of lean with what Vegas is saying. And that's not a bad way to go. Now, if we would have did this, it would have been 50-50 still. But at least I would have got the New Orleans pick because Vegas had them at 2.5 favorites. And it makes you question. And if Vegas makes you question, then you should really do a deep dive and maybe not go against that because there's a reason why that line is out there. But what'd you think of Miami, Carolina?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a couple of games that maybe we touch on that if you didn't watch the game and you just go look at, say, the box score and you look at the stat line and then you tell me that team lost, you're going to be like, huh? If you would have told me Tua throws for 260 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no turnovers, as a team, they didn't turn the ball over. You're going to tell me they lost to Carolina? I'm just not going to believe it. The problem with Miami, though, they couldn't run the ball. They had 14 rushing attempts for 19 yards. I mean, that's insane to me. But, you were right. Miami had this game. They had it. And they just needed to stop there at the end. They couldn't get it. Carolina scored just under that 2-minute warning. And trust me when I said I was a little heated after that score there at the end. That hurt. That one hurt.
Yeah, and I think, going into another game that maybe that we both had right, but I think was a great game. If you were able to watch this game, this was probably the best game of the week, or at least on Sunday, and that would be Tampa Bay and Seattle. The Tampa Bay and Seattle game, that was an offensive fest. It was every time Tampa Bay scored, Seattle scored. Every time Seattle scored, Tampa Bay answered. And it came down to the final drive. And who had the ball? Baker Mayfield. And is there anybody else that is better in the fourth quarter that is still playing football? I know Peyton, he's retired. Tony Romo's not there anymore. But I mean, Baker Mayfield just has a knack for winning a game in the fourth quarter. I mean, did you happen to watch that game? Did you see that?
Yeah, I caught that game, and that we both said it. We've said it on a couple of episodes that who else do you want right now in the league down under 2 minutes and you need to go get a score?
I want Baker
Mayfield. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you want Baker Mayfield. This game was so exciting to watch, though, back and forth. It's what you want to see if you're an NFL fan. You want to see high-powered offenses, which you don't necessarily maybe think that about Seattle, but Sam Darnold's lighting it up. I mean, this game, they threw for over 700 yards combined in this game and 6 touchdowns. This was a back-and-forth game, and it just felt like whoever had the ball last was going to win. Thankfully, it was Tampa Bay, and we were on the right side of that pick, but hell of a game to watch.
Oh yeah, that was a really good game. I believe I was watching that on Red Zone, and it kept interrupting Red Zone with all the scores that were happening.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But it was a good game to watch. The next game I was thinking about was New England and Buffalo. We had opposite picks there. You had Buffalo. Buffalo had a pretty big spread there. I think it was 8 or 8.5. And it was 8. It was 8. Sorry, it was 8. Just had to correct myself there. You had Buffalo. I had New England. And we kind of briefly spoke as to why we had picked those. But New England ended up coming up top and actually ended up winning. And that, to me, was a good game. New England played exactly how New England was going to play. They played defense. But I think the it factor in that game is the rising star of Drake May. Drake May is a decent to good quarterback, and he is growing so far in these first 5 weeks. And I can't wait to see what Drake May can do more. I'm not a big New England fan, but I do like Drake May, and I do like their coach. And so that helps me tune in. And I think that game was a shocker to some, probably. But I'm glad I was on the right side of that, and I'm glad that New England hit that for me. Although I wasn't confident enough for money line with a spread of 8, but New England they played their game and it turned out. Did you happen to catch that one too?
I didn't catch that one, but this goes back to that point that we talked about or that I touched on earlier, where if you if you look at the box score and you say, all right, New England's in Buffalo, Drake May is not going to score. He's not going to throw a touchdown. And their leading rusher for New England had 24 yards. And somehow, and Drake May was sacked 4 times. And somehow they beat Buffalo in Buffalo. But when you go really get down into it, it's the turnovers.
Yeah.
Buffalo turned the ball over 3 times. And you're not going to win a lot of games when you turn over the ball 3 times, especially in a division opponent.
Yeah.
You get these division opponents that these games seem to always come down to one possession. And when you give away the possession 3 times, it's going to be tough to win. And I don't know if I'm underestimating New England at this point or if I'm overestimating Buffalo. I know it's their first loss, but they didn't have a great showing the week before. So I'm going to have to maybe reevaluate the way I look at Buffalo right now.
Yeah, and I think to add to New England to what you were kind of saying was, if you were just looking at storylines for this game, Buffalo wins because Stevenson could not hold the ball. He got punished mid game for it, but Gibson tore his ACL in the game, which caused Stevenson to have to play. And then they were so disciplined. Like the New England is just very well coached. And we forget about that sometimes, that teams that are really well coached, no matter what they have going on with the game, if they're well coached, they win. Detroit is an example of that. They sometimes exceed or they go outside the box because of their coaching. They can be really well disciplined. New England is a really well disciplined team, and that's due to their coach. And you see that in coaching. You can tell if a team has a really good coach or not based off of how they play. And New England, as far as talent goes on paper, doesn't match up to Buffalo. But when you watch the game, you see why it is that they won. And that was a good game. Going into some of the games that we wish we could get back, or actually, I really don't want it back. It's more along the lines of, we thought the Rams game was the worst game that we've seen in a long time. Wait until we talk about Arizona, which we're going to do now. That Arizona-Tennessee game was a complete hot mess. I don't understand how you can lose being 7.5-point favorites to the worst team in the NFL. And it's not like Tennessee just got better within the last week to beat Arizona. Arizona beat themselves. And there was just so many things that happened in that game. Kyler Murray fumbled a snap. Well, he didn't fumble it. His center hiked it to him. It hit him in the face, but somehow his foot got hurt. And, I don't understand. He took himself out of the game for that. He ended up coming back. But then also, there was that whole play where Cam Ward threw a pass, and it went through 4 people's hands. And it ended up fumbling into the end zone for a touchdown for Tennessee. And the things that happened in that Arizona game is just, and don't let me forget the celebratory fumble in the end zone that got called back. And so, we've seen that twice so far in the NFL, where the ball doesn't cross the plane and they let go of the ball, and therefore you don't have the touchdown. And the coach was irate about that. He had to issue an apology of how he treated the player on the sideline for that. But it just goes to show that I don't think Arizona has good coaching. They're not disciplined. They don't have good leadership. And for as talented as that team is, they should be winning games. That defense can create turnovers. They have weapons on offense. They have a quarterback that can get the ball there. But I don't think they have the leadership from the quarterback position. And I don't think they have leadership from a coaching perspective. And, and it proves they lost to Tennessee because they fell apart. Did you watch that game?
Yeah, I did catch that game. And I think you hit the nail on the head where you said, they don't have the leadership and they don't have the coaching. You take a team like Arizona, who's 3 weeks in a row lost on a last-second field goal. 3 weeks in a row. And then you look at Tampa Bay, where they're winning games in the last minute. You want that ball in the last minute. They're going to win. But and I'm not saying Arizona is as talented as Tampa Bay, but some of those times when you get down in the fourth quarter and you're down, when you look over on the sideline and you have a leader, you have a dog like a Baker Mayfield, or you have good coaching, like you just have that confidence you're going to win. It looks like Arizona's playing not to lose. They're not going out there to win. And the fumble on the 71-yard run by DeMercado, at what point, I know this might be an overreaction, but it's like, at what point do you just start fining players on your team or suspending them when you when you have a clear touchdown and you just choose to just give it away because of, and they watch films on these things, and every guy in that locker room is sitting there saying, that would never be me. That would never be me. And then look what happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different age because the coach did something on the sideline about that, and he had to come out and apologize. Now he did. He put his hands on the player. I didn't see the full video. You see it from the back end of the player, and you can't see the coach until he comes in the frame. But you see the movement, and he got to come out and apologize. But if this was Bill Parcells and that happened, he's not getting back into the game. That's not happening because you can't make mistakes like that. You can't make mental mistakes like that and still be able to play for these type of coaches. But that goes into the leadership. That also goes into the leadership of the coach of how he responded with that. There's a different way to respond. You can still respond like Bill Parcells and be respected and have that leadership. But I just don't think he has that leadership in that squad for that. And you're not getting the leadership from Kyler Murray. He's known for the Call of Duty days. That's how he prepares for his games, apparently. And whether that's true or not true, that's what is out in the media, and that's what other people, say about him in the media. And he's admitted to some, stuff that it just goes into the leadership part. And that's all I can say about that game. Arizona should have won. It should not have been close. They fell apart. They were undisciplined. And at the end of it, the way that they played in the second half, they should have lost. But they should have won. So, I mean, I'm still kind of irate about that game. You had the Rams that were supposed to win, the injury-riddled San Francisco 49ers on Thursday night, and they lose in overtime. And then you got the Arizona Cardinals that lose in the final minutes because they don't know how to take care of the ball, and they're not playing to win. You have those two games wrapped together, and that kind of puts you in the loss column where you shouldn't be in the loss column. But we also had a really good game on Monday night, and that game was the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the best play, well, actually, I had Kansas City. You had Kansas City. But I cannot stop thinking about what Hunter did in that game. Hunter had some monster catches in that game, showed up in clutch. When Lawrence needed somebody to get a deep ball or to get a possession-type ball, Hunter was there to do that, and he had a couple spectacular catches there. Thomas did his thing a little bit. He had some good catches down the stretch, but Trevor Lawrence, that final play, fumbled the snap, hits the ground twice, gets up, runs in, and it's as if the Chiefs just thought the play was dead. But he runs into the end zone with 20-something seconds left. That got set up by a pass interference on Kansas City in the end zone. I mean, that game was Kansas City's to win. But in similar fashion, like it always happens, that's why the spread was 3.5, is Kansas City always scrapes by. They started out the game strong, but it ended up what? A 3-point game. Ended up a 3-point game because they just can't knock the opponent out for some reason, except for Baltimore. And I was disappointed at the end of that game. Kansas City should have won. They were leading that whole thing. Defenses was playing good. But there was some crazy stuff that happened. And that Trevor Lawrence run, it's all over social media. It's all over the news. Did you see that?
I did see it. I caught the tail end of that game, and to me, you the reason why Kansas City always scrapes by is I think we go back to that leadership role. You have Patrick Mahomes, arguably the best quarterback in the league. Then you have Andy Reid, arguably the best coach in the league. And so they tend to always pull out these close games. And they had the spread there at the end. They were up four. It was looking good. I think what hurt them, though, they got out to that 14-0 lead. Offense kind of went stagnant there for a little bit. Jacksonville scores 14 unanswered, but then boom, Kansas City starts driving. They're driving. And then all of a sudden, here we go. We're talking about mistakes again. Mahomes throws that pick on the 1 yard line, and it goes 99 yards for a touchdown. And then all of a sudden, it looks like it's 3 scores unanswered. All of a sudden, it's 21-14. And then Kansas City's playing from behind against a really good Jacksonville team.
Yeah.
And hey, hats off to Jacksonville. They're 4-1.
Yes.
They're 4-1. I picked them as my upset pick last week. I should have rolled with them again this week, I guess. But hey, man, I mean, they're playing well. I still would like to get Trevor Lawrence a little bit more involved. He only threw for 220 yards. But, I mean, they played a good game. Their defense, leads the league in takeaways. They had another one there for a touchdown.
Yeah.
It was a good game to watch, though. Great game. And, Trevor Lawrence there at the end, hell of a run.
Yeah, the way that play unfolded was just so it's one of those that I wish I was there live to watch it, because the whole atmosphere would have been crazy. It'd been chaos. It would have been chaos because it's just not expected. I mean, he hit the ground twice with the ball and got up and ran, and I think it was on the 7-yard line or something like that. I can't remember exactly where it was, but he was not touched by a single defender. And that's the crazy part, is no defender touched him with that whole sequence. I mean, I wish that happened whenever. Do you remember when the Cowboys were playing the Seahawks in the wild card game, and that fumble for the holder, Tony Romo he had to pick that up and run that into the end zone, and that cost the playoff win. And it's always been a drought since, right? And I wish that. What Trevor Lawrence did, I wish that happened for Tony Romo. He got stopped right at the goal line for that, and it cost them the playoff win. But Trevor Lawrence, he just takes it almost 5 yards untouched and dives into the end zone with 20 seconds left to spare. It was amazing to watch, but also bittersweet because I knew it just ruined my pick. It ruined my pick. Going into that play, it was just you just need to stop. Just stop him. And when he falls to the ground, you're like, oh, it's over. It should be over. It might be over. Maybe you think they can stop him again because the clock's going to run. But no, he gets up, picks it up, and gets it into the end zone, and then you're dead in the water. Trevor Lawrence, you mentioned in the first half, or you mentioned in the game, you wish he could have threw more. He used his legs a lot in that game, especially in the first half. And he had some calls. He had some PI calls that helped him get downfield, which obviously when that happens shrinks the field for you. But Trevor Lawrence, he played a good game. It did start out with some punts and they went back and forth, but you got it right when you said that turnover right at the end zone. They ran it back. I think it was, you said 96-yard interception return. That was probably the turning point there that put KC on upset alert, and they couldn't claw back. And I'm not going to say that they were panicking, but it definitely, they were just not making the plays they needed to make in order to get ahead. And I love Andy Reid. I really do, even though he coached the Eagles for so long. But he is such a good coach in getting people in the position that they need to be in. But for some reason, it seems like he's just not getting what he needs out of the players, at least for the last 2 years for Kansas City. And there hasn't been a huge turnover of players. It's still the same core. But I don't see I don't see him getting 100% out of the players that he has, and that's unfortunate, and it makes me kind of sad. But um, that KC has better expectations. They have better talent, and they could be blowing teams out, and they're not. So it's unfortunate. But we lost that bet. We lost it. We lost that pick, and that closed us out for the week of 10-4 and 9-5. I think for the year, Murph, you're at like some 67%, which is astronomically good for 5 weeks in. 67% correct. I'm at a measly 53, but hey, it's 1% higher than than what you need to be in order to be profitable. So that's that I can hang my hat on. Hopefully the weeks get better for me. But what do you have to say about your 67%?
Yeah, I mean that is a crazy line right now. I don't think that's sustainable over the long haul, but if we can continue to be at that 55%, look, I'll keep taking the 67%, obviously. But that's going to come back down to earth. We expect some negatives, some regression there, but man, if we can stay right at that 55%, we're going to be winners long term. And that's what our goal is. We're not going for big parlay hits or anything like that. We're talking about straight spreads, single bets. Don't get ahead of yourself. Don't try to package these picks all into a parlay and be the big winner. Just take the long-term wins throughout the end of the season. You can look back and say, hey, I was a winner during the NFL season.
Yeah, and that's the attitude to take with that. Because it's 52%. 52, you need to be above 52% in order to be profitable. But, as long as whether it's 1 unit or 50 units, it's still the same. And we're going to be here doing this until we decide to stop. We like doing this. We love doing this, and it's fun. And, if as soon as we get comfortable doing this more, we're going to do this for other sports. We got NBA down just around the corner, which I know it's probably the bad time for the plug here, but the Mavericks played Oklahoma City in preseason last night, but they played starters, and I have to say, preview, the Mavericks looked amazing. They had their starters out there except for Kyrie Irving. Cooper Flag was awesome, but this isn't about NBA though. It just makes me excited, but what the show could end up being, where we could start talking about other sports. But right now we're in week 5, and we're going into week 6, and that brings us into the Thursday game of the New York Giants versus the Philadelphia Eagles. So this is in New York. Philadelphia is 4-1. New York is 1-4, and the line here is 7.5, and Philly is favored, as they should be. And this is going to be a divisional game. But I kind of want to hear what you have to say about this game before I kind of jump in. So what do you think?
Oh, man. The Eagles' offensive woes continue. And I just don't know about this team. So they had all this talk all week about A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith coming out. We want the ball. We need the ball. And then they come out against the Broncos. Granted, great defense there in Denver. I think they sacked Hurts 6 times. But they went away from their identity, which to me I think is Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley had 6 carries for 30 yards. I know he had that pass. He caught that deep ball, I think, for 50 yards and a touchdown. But you're telling me you think it's a better idea for Jalen Hurts to throw almost 40 passes? He was 23 of 38. Let's throw it 40 times and hand it off to Saquon 6 times. We're talking about the reigning rushing champ. He needs to touch the ball. And I don't know about Kevin Patullo as the offensive coordinator. There's a lot of stories coming out now about him being on the hot seat. And so this just feels like the Eagles a few years ago. Remember when they had that, I think it was, what was his name? Brian Johnson maybe was the offensive coordinator there. And they were losing some games to teams they shouldn't. And they end up making that firing change in the middle of the year. But this game against the Giants, it's in New York. man, I don't know who to go with. My gut says take Philly. They're the better team. But man, if New York doesn't turn the ball over, I think they had 5 total turnovers against the Saints.
Yeah.
Then they win that game. It feels like New York has that spark. They've got that life in them with Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterboo. I wish Malik Neighbors was there, but they have an above average defensive line, and I think this is going to be a close game. I think we might be talking about a firestorm here in Philly after this. I'm not saying the Giants are going to win, but I think that they're going to be good enough, and I think there's just enough drama going on in Philly that I think New York. I think they hang within 7.5. I might take New York here. I think I'm going to take New York here. So I think they cover the 7.5 divisional game at home. They don't turn the ball over. I think they cover 7.5.
Yeah, this might be one of those plays where I'm just like, tell me the line. I'm going to take it and run with it. That's not what I'm saying here. I'm not going to be that overconfident because I need to learn from my lessons from before. But I'm taking Philly because the biggest reason is they're just far superior over the Giants. And at 7.5, you know, if I'm feeling froggy, I'll buy it down to 7. Or see what the line is whenever it actually becomes game time. It could go up, but I'm also not going to be mad if it goes up either. And here's what I think about the game: is I think Philly's defensive pass rush is going to swarm the Giants. I don't think they're going to be able to get much with Jackson Dart back behind there, even with Scatterboo. As much as I love the spark that they've given that game, I just don't think it's going to happen against the Eagles. And I think the Eagles are going to use this game to get back in the right mindset of what the Eagles do. And like you said, their running identity has disappeared. I think they're going to use this game to establish that back. And we may not see Jalen Hurts throw the ball as well. He hasn't. But it might be another game where Jalen Hurts kind of takes the backseat here. And I just don't see an answer from the Giants. So if I don't see an answer from the Giants, I don't see it being close. And so that leads me to just keep going with the 7.5 or 7 or whatever it is as it gets closer to game time to see, which way it goes. But there's not much really to this game other than Philly is just so much better than the Giants. And the Giants are banged up. And so I'm going to go with Philly. I'm going to take the 7.5 right now. I might buy it down. Or if I was really to do it, you could buy it down. But yeah, I've got the Eagles. So you got the Giants, I've got the Eagles. I'm thinking you might change yours maybe towards game time. Who knows? But we'll see. But I like Philly.
Yeah, you might be right. I tend to not do so well on these Thursday night games, and then I come out hot Sunday and recover. So
Yeah.
I'm looking to change that and end this skid that I'm having on Thursday night games. And Giants it's a ballsy move there, taking New York against Philly, but
Yeah.
I just think something is brewing in Philly,
Yeah.
and I don't like it. And
Go
I'm
with
gonna
your
take a
gut.
division. Yeah, I'm gonna take a division rival here, and I think New York keeps it close.
Yeah, go with your gut. Don't compromise. Don't let me persuade you to go in a different direction. Thursday night has not played well with you, but it did not play well with either of us last week. It could do the same this week. I mean, somebody's going to win, right? We're picking opposite picks here, so somebody's going to be right come Thursday. Which reminds me, Thursday we're going to have another show, and we're going to talk about the rest of the slate. We're going to talk about the Sunday slate and then the Monday. Monday night's got 2 games, and one thing to keep in mind so far, these spreads are going to be a little. They've got some pretty high spreads here. Meaning, I consider 7.5, 8. I consider those high. And so that makes it a little bit more difficult. to pick, but they've got some intriguing matchups that I can't wait to talk about. I can't wait to dive into and to see what Murph has in store for what he's going to pick and then what I'm going to counter with. So tune in next Thursday. That's going to be a good one if you want to hear what we have to say about the weekend slate. But outside of that, I mean, I think we had a good recap here. We didn't go over every single game because there were some doozy of the games that probably only hardcore fans watched. But there were some good games, and we talked about those. And I feel good going into Thursday. And I hope your pick pans out, but not really. I want mine to come out on top. So, but
Yeah, look, hey, there's some good games this week, and you touched on it. Some of these lines are a little big, and we'll touch on a lot of these games on that next episode. But there's a game out there that's got a double-digit spread on it, and not a big trade, but a pretty big trade went through, and that might affect this line. It might be shocked by someone, by a pick we have here. Stay tuned.
They're getting some help. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you enjoyed the show. Grab a drink, sit back, relax for the rest of the week until Sunday comes, and let's enjoy some football together. Because guess what? This is the smartest idiot you know. Have a great week, guys.